Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it's Thursday. It's October 6th. This will be our chart lesson for the day. And here's a look at our daily chart. We turned back down at that midline again. We've broken lower below that today so far. Again, this is the early overnight session. You can't put too much stock in what's going on here. We could break lower and turn back up, make another leg up. The fact that we can't get through that midline, we may test it one more time and see what happens. I don't know. It's possible, but the fact that we've tested it twice and can't get through and closed so bearish today leads me to think we're probably going to push lower again, maybe retest these lows one more time, see what happens from there, and see if we could go lower. We definitely relieved all the over sold issues, and now we could easily go lower again. So to me, it's looking like we're going to go lower, but this is still, you see you got a doji here, another inside bar today. So we could easily go sideways, even turn down a little bit and turn back up. I mean, it's still not real clear where we're headed yet. So I think we're headed lower based on the larger chart. Larger chart still says we got room to go lower. So one thing I'm looking at is notice how we came up short of this midline here and how we came up short of this midline here. It looks like it's a very similar distance. So let's just say if we tighten that up and then look at there, we're right off that midline and can't get through it. And we came through it, hadn't tested it yet. So that would tell me, based on my experience, we almost always come back and test that before we go lower. So having made that move right there and seeing what's happened now, it looks like to me we're probably going lower. We could still test this again and get on through. Sometimes you'll get a couple of separate tests. I mean, those are just two tests that back to back. So we could trade down a little bit, come back and test it again, maybe even a couple more. Sometimes you get a double test. So, which is what I really call a triple test. So far we've tested it once. We may test it twice, or we may get a triple test out of it. Is how the way it was what I'm trying to say. So, but to me it looks like we're probably going lower now. We'll see. That makes more sense now that I've tightened that up, and you can see that's an exact. I mean, anybody tells you that market geometry is not real does not know what they're talking about. And if market geometry is real, how could random movements of prices be real? They can't be one and the same. And so I strongly believe in market geometry. I've proven it. I see it happen every day. And so I do not believe the markets are totally random. They're not. Why? I cannot explain to you totally, but I just know that what happens from experience, from years and years and years of sitting here watching it happen every day. So take from that what you wish, but from somebody that sat here and watched it every day for 15 to 20 years, trust me, market geometry is real. Measured moves, when I say market geometry, equal and measured moves and that kind of thing are very, very real. Very real. So anyway, there's a look at it. Looks like we're going lower again to me. I think this market's doomed for a while. I just don't see there's no reason this market should rally. Doesn't mean it can't. You never argue with the market. The market can be wrong a lot longer than you can be wrong. So don't argue with it. Never argue with it. There's nothing wrong with looking at the chart and trying to determine where prices are going, because that's what we do. But when you're wrong, or what you expect to happen doesn't happen, don't argue with it. Just take what it gives you and go with it. So we're, if tomorrow this thing's rocketing straight up and we've got a trend on the intraday chart, the 2,000 tick chart that's going up, then we're going to be buying. As simple as that. But right now I think we're going lower. I really do. So we'll leave it at that. Let's move over to the 2,000 tick chart, take a look at it and go through the trades, and we'll call it a week. This is Thursday, so no chart lessons on Fridays, but let's flip on. Okay, here it is, and we spent most of the trading day in a trading range. But at the same time, you can clearly see there's a downward trend here. There's probably a bigger trend channel here that I didn't I don't have on here. I mean, maybe you make this work like so. Uh, looks pretty. That looks valid to me. That's probably correct. But I don't think you need it. I think you're better off to just play the shorter term stuff, play the range. But when you're turning, every time you came higher, notice how you made a lower high. That tells you eventually we're going to push through here. There's strong support here, but they're losing momentum to the upside every time it went higher. That tells you we're going to go lower. Even then, it still fails temporarily. We come back, we test the breakout, and then we go lower again, and we close lower, and we're into the next trading day, and we're trading lower. That what's going on now has no bearing though, so don't get caught up in that. It could change 100 times before tomorrow. So let's zoom in. You see the big picture. Let's zoom in, go through these trades, and wrap it up. And even here, we're trending higher. I tried to draw a trend channel here, and you can get one, but again, I don't think you need one. It's not. It doesn't really help you. You just need to trade these shorter term trend channels that I have here, the way I've got them drawn. Uh, but 7 o'clock came just as we're making this little. I mean, we already had a break of the yellow channel and a new low, so doesn't mean we weren't going to go lower again here, maybe get a new channel, but you can't really tell what's going on. You got this green channel, you get a break, move to a new high, you made a lower high right here. Maybe you take that lower high, there's enough room to get out, and we may be going lower, but there's just barely enough room to get out there. So, and it is congested. We did bounce at that midline a few times, but if it breaks below that bar, maybe what you do is you use a limit order, see if you get a little better entry, just to make sure you got room to get out. It doesn't end up mattering, but that's important because sometimes it'll bounce on you and you won't get out, and you can't risk that. So always make sure you got, if you're trading a range, which is what we're doing here, we're trading this range on the lower high back inside the range. You got to make sure it's got room to get out here before you get here if you're going to go short here and trade this. If we'd got a setup to the long side on the other side, maybe we take it, but you don't get a setup. So this bar is too bearish. You can't use that bar. There's not enough room left, even if you could. And it runs right back up. You get an overshoot on this channel, this green one here. And then you make a lower high. This looks a little too congested for me. It's way away from the EMA. And there probably is room to scalp out, but you're trading this as a lower high. So I'd wait on something better. A few minutes later, you get a failed second entry long. It technically was a failure when it broke below that bar, but when it broke higher there and turned back down, when it went lower there, I like going short. I don't know if I wait till here to go short. I think you got to trade that one on the engulfing bar. But even if you didn't take it, this is a little tighter. A few minutes later, you get a break and a second entry short right there. And you could look at that as a first entry, second entry failure. Technically, it's not, but it's a two-legged correction in a downtrend. You're trading down. You're expecting prices are going to make. You're expecting prices to retest this low on the break. I like going short there. Makes a new low, makes a higher low. Can't trade that right back into the EMA though. Runs up, pulls back. There is a failure here. I'm not crazy about trading this failure because you do have this green channel working up, and if this breaks higher, it's basically a failure, but there's not much room to that high, and we've kind of turned down there a couple of other times over here, so it's a little concerning to me. I don't think you want to trade that as a reversal, basically. And also, notice that we had this move up, and then we started another leg, so we're looking for a measured move here. So there's a lot of room to go higher if it works out. But I just think you got to wait. Then you're just going sideways here, and you've already had a break of this green one in a new high. So on a first entry, no. Then you got, excuse me, I'm sorry. When I start talking, I'm still having a little trouble with my throat when I start talking a lot. first entry. There's a second entry long here. Very neutral bar in a range right into the midline of that. There may be enough room to scalp out there. I don't know. It wasn't worth risking to me. We just keep chopping sideways, and then finally get a failed breakout here. Now this is a little more aggressive trade. This is for more experienced traders. But if you know what's going on here, you take this trade. I'll mark this green because if you're a little less experienced, you probably want to wait on a higher low. A lot of times you won't get one, but that's a safer play just to make sure we're definitely going higher here. But I like this trade. I'll probably take it most times because this is where you find important lows. And if you just catch this one trade, it's just one trade here. But if you catch this, you get a run. You're gonna get a runner here, and you can ride this all the way at least to the first break, and that's 14.5 points on a single contract. It's $725 on one contract. You don't need many of those to make a lot of money as a good trader. And if you're trading multiple runners, well, you can do the math and figure out how well that helps your numbers and how well that helps your bottom line. So never forget those runners. But then you get the close outside, move up, and you get a lower high here, way away from the EMA. Yeah, it's congested, but if you understand why, look at that. We made a measured move, basically. I'm going to take that trade every time, too. We didn't get a reversal here. We just kind of got stuck at the EMA. It does go lower. There is a second entry right there, too. Notice that. First entry, second entry. But that's too congested. You can't count a second entry there. Just let it go. Unfortunate, but let it go. Same thing here. We just go sideways and drop down. Then it bounces. No chance to get in this one, but it trends up, get a close outside, two legs up to a new high, and it looks a lot like this one. It looks a lot like a couple of other ones we saw over here. Take that trade. It's becoming there's a couple of different repeat patterns we see here today. A couple of different times we see them. So I like that trade. And if you don't take that one, there's no other chance to enter that either. Runs down, you don't get a close outside to here, a new low, but then you get another second entry. And even though you're going sideways there, that's not congestion. There's no doji there. I mean, prices are just struggling to go higher. And obviously you can't take this if you don't go short on the engulfing bar. You have to take the engulfing bar, which I kind of like the engulfing bar because it breaks higher and traps people and turns down. I really thought it would drop on down. It does, but it creates another inside bar, and a few minutes later you get another second entry short, kind of the same thing, engulfing bar. And this one, if you've got enough room to get out there, maybe you take that one after it closes. And then we reach the lows, the overnight lows, and once you hit this, you can't be going short until you know you got some kind of trap or prices are proving they're going lower. And of course, you get this trend line here. And there's no real chance to enter this prior to that, but this confirms that trend line, and that is a first entry, second entry short. It's also a triple test. It's a confirmation of the cyan colored trend line. There's plenty of room to get out. As you can see, it does bounce, but you had plenty of room to get out, and can't get your stop anyway if you got your stop in the right place. And if you exit down here, you might even got a couple of points on the runner. Again, it does break lower. There's a bearish bar here, but notice how we're right on the line. It's not acting as resistance or support there. Just stay out of that. You get a couple more acting as resistance, but it doesn't break lower, and next thing you know, you're going higher. So you can't go long here, even though because you still got this cyan colored channel here, so you can't be going short here. And then it runs up here, starts working sideways, and you get a little trap right here that confirms that trend line. Maybe you take that one. I don't think you want to wait till here to go long because you're right into this to resistance. But maybe when it breaks higher right there, you drop a limit order in, and it did back up a little bit a few times there before it went on higher. So you could have gotten filled at enough room to get out here just in case it did turn back down. So maybe you play that one. It's not it's not by any means a great setup. You certainly don't want to go long at the top up here. So I marked it green. Runs up, comes back, gets his close outside. Here you get a reversal. So when we were still expecting maybe a retest of this low here, so I like this reversal. Again, maybe you don't take this the way this closes here underneath that bar. Maybe you only trade this one as an engulfing bar. But having drawn this thing the way I did in the end, I think I had it wrong, and I just never really came back and corrected it after the fact. I think it's more like that right there. And you get your two legs down, then you get two legs up, and then you come back down and test your lows. So if you saw it properly, had it marked properly, maybe you take this trade right here. I'll mark this trade right here regardless because it's a failed second entry long. Notice that you move down, you go first entry, second entry, and you take that. And you were just looking for prices to test this low originally. Now you're looking for it to make a new low, but I'm not sure if you've got a new low there yet or not. It's kind of hard to tell. Let's just look at it. No, that's a double bottom. So you did not get a new low there. So it may go even further lower, which it does. It doesn't go very far. But anyway, there's also a trend line right here with the break and a new low. And then we're running up. And this is the retest of the green one over here. And this one is, notice you got a new low, you try to go lower once, you move up, you try to go lower. I mean, that's a move all the way back to the EMA, so you got to count that as a leg. It looks a little sideways. You could go back and forth and say, I don't know if that's just one leg up or not. So it's hard to say if that's a failure. Plus, it doesn't really come back to the EMA. But if you see these things playing out here, and you know we're trying to make a retest of this high, that's going to trap people. And you can see how quickly that runs up real fast. And there's that right there is probably people taking their profits that just wanted to scalp out of it, or that were short that realize now they got to get out, and then it takes on off up. So, and there's another little channel here that I don't have on. I thought I came back and drew them all, but sometimes you miss these smaller ones from a higher distance. But notice you get a close outside, move to a new high. Now you're working down, same thing. There's no shorts up here. Get your close outside, move to a new low, higher low, and now you're working up again. And you see that same kind of setup here. This is basically just a notice the new low, and that's definitely a leg. So first leg up, second leg up, that's a failed second entry. It breaks lower and turns up, and you can tell it trapped people by, look at that big stem. It rocketed. This was rocketed all the way up before it. People took some profits, and then some more buyers come in and it pushes on up again. And what I think this was, you had your break over here, then two legs up to a new high, and then it sells off. And it was kind of hard to see that till after. It looks like right here you don't really get a retest, but you actually get an overshoot too. So that could tell you that, hey, you may not get a retest. So there's a couple of different ways to kind of explain how this got to up here without getting a retest. So one, it's probably part of a two legs up to a new high on this green maybe. Even if it's not, there is a retest there. It's mild, but it's definitely, an overshoot. And a lot of times you don't get a retest on an overshoot. I mean, you could tell they were fighting to take this up to begin with. And then finally people realize the buyers have given up, and boom, look at it go. And I like this. This is, we've seen this little setup here a couple of times now. It's become a kind of a repeat pattern. There was another one over here somewhere. But anyway, I like this. technically it's a lower high, and this does go way on up here, more about halfway up. So I think you could call that a lower high. It's not ideal. So for that reason, I did mark it green. But look how bearish that is. So this thing's probably going to at least make another leg down, and the bottom just falls out of. This was another one of those where if you take a little more risk, sometimes you get a little more reward, or a lot more reward. But I'm not telling you to start taking a lot of risk, because most of you just lose when you do that. But if you're a really good chart reader, sometimes you want to risk these kind of trades if you think you understand what's going on and you're pretty sure that you're right. And you just, you get your break here, move to a new low. You actually get a couple legs down to the lows. I don't see anything here that would make me want to go short. And here's that pattern again, but we didn't even get back to the trend line on that one, so I didn't see a chance to enter that one on the way up. Get your close outside, move to a new high, and it turns down. So draw that trend line there just in case. And this is another one. I mean, we've seen this several times. It starts out above, and then you get this big bearish bar closing through. And just like there it is, they're kind of repeat type. They're not exact. Here's another one. I mean, I've seen that over and over here today. Here's another one. That one does do below though, but they're just real close, but they're so bearish. So I like that trade. I think we talked about this one. This one is a failure. First entry, second entry. It doesn't quite get back to the EMA, but that's close enough. We just came off the trend line, so it's definitely close enough. And even that bar is a lower high. It starts above the, so I mean, that's that repeat pattern. If you see that, take that trade. Here we're coming up. You get a close outside, a couple of legs up to a new high, and it turns down right off the key entry point. I marked that one green, but you could almost argue for it to be red, because this trend line's proven now there's just not a lot of room to the EMA there, and it could bounce one more time. But when it pushes through, pulls back, and gives you that same bearish bar, I don't know that I trust going short way down here. There's still probably room to get out. You've bounced there a few times across there, so you got to be careful with that. But definitely, if you've seen this repeat pattern here over and over and over, take the engulfing bar, because you still got plenty of room then. And if you could get it breaks lower and you can drop a limit order far enough back to get out before these lows, maybe you take it anyway. Drops on down. Notice it does go lower, and you get a close outside. You actually get a two-legged correction with a close outside and turns down there. Technically, you could even look at that as a failure almost. This really looks sideways, and so your first move back, but just forget I said that, because that's going to confuse people. It's just a second entry with a bearish bar right off the EMA when you're looking for a retest of this low. And you're in a downtrend. It's pretty obvious that trend line is valid. We haven't even got back down to the actually this is moved here, should be back up here. So you got plenty of room back to that midline. And where does it go? That midline, and then it bounces. You don't want to be going long here. And then you get a first entry long. Actually, I counted this as a new high, and you can try to go higher twice. Let me zoom in here. This is just another second entry, really. First entry goes higher. Second, it ticked lower right there. So by the counts, it's probably not technically a second entry. It's really kind of congested, but it's just because we're trying to go higher there and can't. And look how bearish that's that bearish bar that starts above the EMA and turns down. Or it just doesn't necessarily start above it, but it trades above it and then turns down and it closes bearish. So if you saw the repeat pattern, maybe you can almost say, hey, that's red. And this thing takes something. We finally get through that support there. That again is the support line of the range day. And this thing just takes off here. We do get a break. It kind of chops on down here. I don't see anything I really like here going short down here. We're probably going to come back pretty quickly and test this. So yeah, there's some trades you might argue are green in there. I didn't even mark them. But notice this one that runs straight back up through the EMA, pulls back. First entry, pulls back, and it actually pulls back again, but it's a second entry long when it breaks above this bar. So you could trade that on the engulfing bar. I wouldn't have a problem trading that either way because it does confirm that trend line. Technically, I mean, you can clearly see the two legs back, and it's technically it's a higher low at the same time it's a second entry. So, and look at it go. Then it comes back, and it breaks higher there. This should actually be right here. But that's where your stop would have to go right there. Let me explain this. When it comes back, it breaks higher and it turns back down, and then it turns back up again. When it goes past that, you could count that as a second entry, even though it didn't break lower there. It's a little convoluted. That's the reason I marked it green. And it's really late in the day too, so it's one of those you probably just say, nah, it's not worth it. But it's obviously right off that key entry point. And looks like we're going higher. So anyway, there it is. And I think Monday is Columbus Day. The banks are closed, so I think that means that there's no trading, but I haven't looked at the trading calendar. So if the market, usually on those kind of days, the market trades till noon and then closes for the rest of the day. So it's not worth trading it. Don't get it caught up in a trade in that if it does close tomorrow at noon. If it is, or I'm sorry, Monday. This is Monday. If Monday is a holiday, I won't be in. There won't be any mid-margin chart. No chart listed on YouTube either. So I'll post something about it tomorrow morning. I'll look at it, but no chart listed tomorrow regardless. So I'm not sure if we'll be back Monday or Tuesday. I've got to verify that. We're almost 30 minutes here, and it's late today. So I'm going to wrap this one up. I think we're going lower. Who knows what will really happen, but I'm going to wrap it up. We'll be back again either Monday or Tuesday. I'm done for today. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.